Hello, Chuck here, and in this video I'm going to celebrate a definite first for me, which is having a video that's had over 1 million views.
Yeah,
Good
job.
So, I figure the only proper way to celebrate would be to just, throw a big party and get totally wasted and record it and, show it all to you. Just kidding, I'm really not that interesting. The proper way for me to celebrate, I think, well, the first thing I should do is to make a celebration pony. So now that I've got the celebration pony, I think I'd like to celebrate by taking a look back, not at the Metallica medley, but at my 5 shottiest videos. These are 5 projects that I've selected that have been online for quite some time, most of them over a year. And the irony here is, to me, these are actually not my most shoddy videos. These are actually 5 of the projects that I'm most proud of. The Metallica video, the funny thing about that, and the only thing that I have learned to be true about putting up guitar videos online is that, you just never know what will get tossed around. The effort that went into that Metallica medley has pretty much been unmatched in its minimal requirements. All of these projects that I'm going to show here took so much more effort, so much more thought, and I thought the goals were so much higher than the goal of the Metallica medley. I'm also proud of the Metallica medley, and I'm very glad that it's got tossed around online the way that it has. But the fact remains, the intent behind it was just not as strong. The work behind it, it didn't require near as much, and the goals for it were just not as important, I felt, as these 5 videos that I'm going to show here. The Metallica medley was made in between 2 other much bigger, much more involved projects. And I remember thinking, it might just be fun just because I love Metallica and I love their music to just throw some of these parts together. Most of them aren't arranged whatsoever. They're just reproduced literally. Just to kind of take a break from the work I was doing and just enjoy playing Metallica's music. And I had, I never thought for a second that really anybody would listen to that. It was just something that I made. So the goal wasn't as important as these other projects. Of course, that medley represents the great music of Metallica. But there's just a ton of content that does that. The only thing I think that medley has to offer, the only 2 things I guess I can think of are, it did take creative intent to string those parts together. The only other thing that the medley offers, I think, is just tone of voice. The tone of voice that I bring in playing it. And that's just like, it's like making a bet on the weather. Tone of voice is just neither here nor there for a listener. They might pay attention to it, they might not. It might be for them, it might not be. It's really just, it's neither here nor there. I don't know what to say about it. It's something that I work on as much or more than anything else. And at the same time, I realize that statistically, most of the people that are going to listen to my work, the tone of voice will be completely lost on them. It's just the way that it is. But I think it's something very important that the medley offers. It's something that I put a lot of effort and a lot of work, a lot of thought into. The goals for these arrangements were to bring the mindset and tone of voice and interpretations of the classical guitar to other genres of music. And then, at the same time, bringing the mindsets and the influence and the, point of origin, I guess, of these other kinds of music to listeners of the classical guitar and classical music. These are two different venues that I really love and really enjoy and really respect. All of these songs are like video game music pieces, or there's one TV show piece in here. So it's not classical music, probably written by people who had some type of classical influence, at some time or another. There's just infinite opportunity to be creative with these lines and to use them to whatever your purpose is, to be creative, to express yourself, to show the beautiful things that your instrument can do, in a combination of all those things. So this type of work is what I'm most proud of. Being the creator of these projects, I kind of think about them backwards. In other words, for other people, it's like they see what kind of response your work will get, and then they say, now I'm going to kind of, now it will be meaningful in some way or another. As the creator, it's the opposite of that. Because I remember thinking about these projects from their conception and thinking, this would be really important. And then from that point, seeing it all the way through, is this even going to work? Maybe you try a bunch of things and they don't work, and you've got to keep trying things. Once you start feeling it out, the feeling of like, this is actually, like, you feel like it's being birthed. Like, this is actually happening. It used to just be this idea floating in my head. Now it's actually coming out. And then at some point, you're just like, this is going to happen. Maybe you get 60, 70% through making an arrangement, and you think, wow, this is actually going to be an arrangement. When I get all this in shape, I'll be able to record it. I'll be able to write it down if I want. And this will be an actual piece of music, a newly created piece of music. So these are the feelings I felt about these arrangements. I haven't had these feelings about some other projects that have got tossed around a lot online. And that's just the case. Just stating it as it is. I'm very proud of those as well. But the truth is, the goals for them were just not as high for me. And I didn't think they were as important as some of these other projects that I'm about to show you. And I'm going to post the links to all of these videos in the description. So if you want to check them out, by all means, feel free. And you can see if you think know what I'm talking about, if you agree, or if you're just like, no, these suck. I'm going to go back and listen to that Metallica medley you did. And if so, then that's quite all right. Knock yourself out. So this track is from a video game called The Evil Within. This is actually from The Evil Within 2, the sequel to the game. And this track is called Making Your Way Home. This track in the game, it's very, it has like lots of synth sounds that kind of fade in and fade out, and a lot of tones that, you're not really even sure what you're hearing. As far as like specific notes and their progression. So for me as an arranger, it was really fun to like listen to this and kind of guess at what I was hearing. I think it's this chord, I think it's these notes. Here they are on the guitar. That was fun to do, and you end up settling on something you think sounds good, and also sounds like the track. Because you wouldn't want to make something else out of it. This track is just it's unique sounding to me. It's peaceful, it's solemn, it's sorrowful. It comes up at a very sorrowful moment in the game. As far as making the arrangement, I'm really proud of kind of the variation of it. So this piece is in 3 sections. The first section is a lot of chords. You're just trying to introduce this theme. that you hear in the song. And it's a lot of slow-moving chords, which is difficult to achieve on the classical guitar when you want it to sound smooth and easy. And kind of exploring different voicings with this theme. Throwing in harmonics for effect and stuff like that. Then in the middle variation, it switches to this cello-sounding line. So this is added on the lower strings of the guitar, but way up on the fingerboard and upper register. And there's a beautiful kind of cello-like register up there on the guitar. And I try and use that almost whenever I can because it just is so special sounding. So there's a cello sounding part in the middle of this piece, so that just fit really nicely. And then I had to build the accompaniment around that with these arpeggiated figures. And it's slowly building a texture towards the end of the piece, which is the third part, where these kind of hectic arpeggios come in. And the original piece has this feeling a little bit like there's a few more synths and the chords are a little louder, but I kind of exaggerated that in this arrangement with these arpeggios because I just wanted it to have that progression of the third part being pretty hectic. And then after that, there's kind of a fourth part. It's really just ending material, but we're back to chords, very solemn and sorrowful. And really just trying to capture this mood when playing this last bit. It felt like a great exploration to just say, you've got two chords to play. How can you make them sound as sorrowful and, as kind of as final as you can. That's the feeling you have in the game at this point. It's like, the all is lost moment. There's no going back. So that equates to technique, but really for me it was like a really neat exploration in trying to figure out how to get these feelings out through these notes and through the guitar. So this is Goodbye Moonman from Rick and Morty. And this is an interesting story for me because, at times I can be accused of, not living on the same planet as the rest of us. I had a friend tell me about Rick and Morty. I'd never heard of it, how great a show it was. So we watched it and we loved the show. I had no idea it was such a phenomenon, worldwide. I just didn't know because, I'm just disconnected sometimes from society. I always wanted to arrange Goodbye Moonman. I just love that song. I just think it's such a great sounding song, the David Bowie influence and all that stuff. And I just thought, well, this song sounds so great, it would make a great classical guitar arrangement. At the same time, it seemed like a good opportunity to use this technique that we call guitar tremolo. I've always wanted to explore using tremolo as a aspect of a piece more, as opposed to having the whole piece be exclusively tremolo, just so that we can appreciate the technique to the utmost degree and it have the biggest effect it can. When you want a part of the music to have big impact, sound very musical, and sound totally different than what's around it, bam, you turn on tremolo like a switch and it's like an explosion. Okay, so Goodbye Moonman. There you go. In the chorus, when it kicks in, bam, guitar tremolo. That was the idea. And before that, in the first part, I found some ways to keep myself interested, with the harmonics and echo things and stuff. That was fun to do. But the idea was always if I can make the chorus work with guitar tremolo, this would make a great arrangement. And it would be great to expose people to this technique. The Rick and Morty fandom aside, all that stuff, I'm very proud of this arrangement in terms of, arranging just one of my very favorite songs. I think it's just a great song. And then working it into a classical guitar piece and using some very important classical guitar techniques to serve the music in the best way that I possibly could. And then, executing all that together to play it like a classical guitar piece. It took an awful lot of preparation, and I'm extremely proud at the way that it turned out. So this is from Animal Crossing New Leaf, and this is the track that it plays at 1 a.m. At literally 1 a.m. on the game. So I've never played an Animal Crossing game, just to be honest. I don't have a ton of time to play games, but I have been exposed to a lot of its music, and I just love the music. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I remember first hearing this song and not knowing what key it was in, but I remember thinking, man, if this was in a guitar-friendly key, this would make for a perfect plucking hand harmonic study, and a beautiful one too. Because you've got that high line with these little pingy notes that are just kind of floating and sitting there, and just some very beautiful, just very serene resolutions that just sound like they're exactly perfect. And then you've got the luscious harmonies being spelled underneath, and I was like, man, this would be great for harmonic study, doing those harmonics with the plucking hand, and then playing these lush arpeggios with your thumb and trying to work that. Eventually, I sat down with the guitar, and sure enough, in the original key, it's in a very friendly guitar key. I can't remember what it is now. But an open string key, so that you don't have to use a capo or change the key or anything like that. So from that point, and this is one of those that you can reproduce literally, note for note. The texture is thin enough to where you can do that. So I felt that, that's definitely what I should do. From that point, working this thing was, it was like a nightmare to play it. So very difficult, because these harmonics, a lot of them are in very difficult places to see visually. They go past the fingerboard to this area over the sound hole where you just make your best guess. And with these plucking hand harmonics, if you don't hit them basically exactly right, you get no sound. So you're trying to create this beautiful, serene, just mood engulfing piece of music, and you play a couple harmonics that's getting there, and then you play the next one and you just get a dunk, and it just ruins the whole thing. And then you've got to stop and start over. So I sat down to record this several times. It was really stressing me out before I finally got a take where I didn't blow any of the harmonics, and it does make a great artificial harmonic study, without a doubt, for exploring these harmonics that go past the fingerboard, and not just playing harmonics there, but working it into a very beautiful piece of music. So this would go fantastic on a recital program, like a classical guitar recital program, but it's certainly not without its challenges. And the other cool thing about this video, as you can see, is the night that I got the take, Splenda, my adopted daughter, who's also a cat, was taking a nap beside me on the chair. So this is one of the most iconic tracks from Silent Hill, right? And this is called Not Tomorrow. It's from the original Silent Hill game. As popular as those games are, I guess not near as many people know about them as games like Madden or Call of Duty, or games like that. So it seems to be somewhat of a small community online, but a very devoted community. And I'm one of those people. The music of Silent Hill has been some of the most influential music to me. I think it's just truly special and unique, and I think it's genre defining. The music of those games, together with games like Resident Evil, where you have these terrifying, horrific games with nothing but life-threatening scenarios, basically, but you have these little breaks in between where you're in a room where you're safe. There's nothing that's going to get you in there, and you have these just beautiful themes that put you at ease, but they also have the feeling of, eventually you're going to have to go back out there. And fans reference this all the time. I mean, this is a very obvious aspect that people appreciate. It's calming and serene, but it doesn't all the way let you just relax there. You still have the feeling of, well, you're going to have to go back out and fight for your life. And you can rest for now, but you're not finished. Just some great music. This song, I was inspired to make it a guitar tremolo piece. Like what I said with Goodbye Moonman, I was trying to do something different. I was trying to not make that an only tremolo piece. This song, I thought, I'm going to make it like a tremolo study piece. The whole thing is going to be tremolo. Because, I love tremolo, and I kind of feel like we can always use more pieces. And with this song, you've got this melody line that is extended. It's played on a synthesizer, and it's long lines, not many notes, but they're held out for a while, so it seemed like the only way that I could make that happen was to use guitar tremolo and to make it a study. And that's what it ended up being. There's only 2 sections of this song, right? Kind of the minor section and then the major section. They're both beautiful. It has a little intro that a lot of classical guitar tremolo pieces will have. They'll have something with the thumb first, and then the tremolo will come in. So I echoed that in this piece. And, I thought this piece, also had the very important goal of appealing to classical guitarists who would enjoy tremolo and would enjoy a new, beautiful piece to play using tremolo, and people who love this music who maybe also play guitar, hearing it in this brand new way with this brand new sound and thinking, what is that? Maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I'll see where it comes from. So this piece is pretty much the epitome of those 2 goals that I have for a lot of arrangements, and that I think are very, very important. And working on it was just really beneficial. I think I worked on it for, it was like 4 or 5 or 6 months. Because the tremolo is like, when you get it to be somewhat consistent, then if you have a measure where you miss some notes, it just really sticks out. So recording it was definitely tricky. The other cool thing about this piece is I tried to record it a few times, like 2 or 3 times, I can't remember for sure. And when I ended up getting this take, I'd been recording for a while, probably at least an hour, or maybe an hour and a half. And the take that I ended up using, right at the beginning, you can see Splenda, my cat, walks in the room, and she gets in the shot. I mean, right at the beginning, it's just timed perfectly. And then she ends up kind of circling around and loafing on my guitar case and getting ready for a big nap there. And you can see her in the edge of the video. So that was really cool, and my wife liked that especially. So this is Sonic the Hedgehog, and this is the bonus stage waltz is what I call it. It's from the bonus stage of the very first Sonic the Hedgehog game back on Sega Genesis. So you can't mention video game music without mentioning the soundtrack to the first Sonic the Hedgehog game. It's just some fantastic music. It's like every one of those tracks is great. This arrangement has an interesting story for me, partly because of, part of the journey that I've gone through as a musician and, trying to become an adult and, all that stuff that goes along with that. So a lot of you know, that I didn't grow up playing classical guitar. I grew up playing electric guitar. When I started to study classical guitar, I was learning some etudes and studies and taking lessons. And up until that point, mainly I wrote music. I wrote my own music. That was what I did as a musician. And so that was normal for me. And then I would do some arranging here and there. So just every once in a while something would hit me and I would arrange it in some way. when I was accepted into the classical guitar program at my university, it was then that I realized that, at least in this particular culture, you know, it was just kind of poo-pooed on to write music for the classical guitar. I can't really say why, but suffice it to say, I never shared the pieces that I wrote with anyone. I never told anyone that I wrote my own pieces for the classical guitar. I was embarrassed that I had, and I just kind of kept it to myself. Around the same time was when I made the arrangement for this song, this bonus stage waltz from Sonic the Hedgehog. I was playing the game at the time, replaying it, and this is my favorite track from the game. I just love it. And I love the way it comes up in the game. It comes up in the most hectic stage where you're tumbling and you're trying not to just accidentally fall the wrong way because it'll end the whole thing. And so I arranged this piece in the same form that you hear it, right? The same form that I would record it in, 6 or 7 years later. One time I played a bit of it for a teacher and they kind of made fun of it. So that pretty much, solidified for me. It's just like, you shouldn't do this. This is not what classical guitarists do, and this is not good work. So I quit doing this type of work. Only studied classical guitar music, and learned quite a lot from doing that. Okay, it was years later when I had found, who I called my guitar teacher. When he really encouraged me to. He encourages everybody to really be themselves. And through working with him, I realized that he encouraged me to do this type of work, to write my own music, to arrange music, even if it wasn't music that, he particularly enjoyed or would want to play or listen to himself. So I unlearned these things about how it's bad to write your own music, it's bad to arrange pieces that are outside of classical music. And I relearned that I think it's super important work for me to do. So after I relearned that, I had made a bunch of arrangements, and I somehow stumbled across this arrangement, and I thought, man, this is a forgotten child from long ago, and it deserves to be played and recorded. So I worked it up, ended up making the recording. This piece also is a great example, I think, of what a well-playing classical guitar piece should be. You've got a very clear, very beautiful melody that, you want to work to set above everything else. You've got an interesting accompaniment that, gives you your harmonies, your nice-sounding chord changes, and they're voiced in a way that sounds easy and makes sense, but that's still playable on the guitar. And then, you've got some contrast. You've got a couple of different sections in this piece. I kind of made an introduction there, just using some of the harmonies. And then this is an example of, and a lot of video game tracks are like this. They're so layered with all their parts, They got so many parts going on at once. But in arranging it, my goal was to separate some of these parts out, make them each their own section, so that we could enjoy each part a little bit more. We could take more time. We have more time with this form of this piece, and we can enjoy some of these lines and their uniqueness, and then it will make for a nice progression of the piece. So that's why you hear it in the form that it is. You have an introduction, come in with a main theme, kind of after that you have the little counter theme. And then eventually you have the high part that goes high up on the neck of the guitar and using bar chords. That part was a little tricky to execute. And you kind of have that in all of its glory, and it kind of serves as the climax for this arrangement, right? And after that, you settle back down, and then you end the piece. So it seemed like a very logical progression and trying to flesh it out a little bit. But I'm very proud of this piece. Because I think this is such beautiful music.
you know, I can share plus game, Steve Louis, the team from the or something. So we don't matter what that. Yes, there's not on my head, yeah, much funny, man. Let's see how we'll take it, man. So we don't matter what that.
Hello, Chuck here, and in this video, I'm going to celebrate um,
I'm also proud of the documentary, and I'm very glad that it's got tossed around online the way that it has. But the fact remains, the intent behind it was just not as strong. The work behind it, it didn't require near as much, and the goals for it were just not as important, I felt, as these 5 videos that I'm going to show here. The documentary was made in between 2 other, much bigger, much more involved projects, and I remember thinking, you know, it might just be fun, just because I love Metallica and I love their music, to just throw some of these parts together. Most of them aren't arranged whatsoever. They're just reproduced literally. Just to kind of take a break from the work I was doing and just enjoy playing Metallica's music.